So let's talk a little bit about some of the data types that we mentioned, qualitative versus quantitative, and no doubt many of you have heard the difference between the two. Qualitative data comes from talking to participants directly, and usually with written written observations or documents or response to open-ended questions. So regardless of any study design, there are two types of data that you're going to collect. And it's also important to sort of make sure that your evaluation questions and the study design that you choose sort of align with those data sources. Exploratory and descriptive studies often use both types of data. So, for example, if you're looking at let me refocus here real quickly. Let me go back and sort of put quantitative data here as well. As I mentioned, qualitative data was talking to participants directly. Quantitative data are numeric counts, scores, and summaries of information that can be manipulated. And as I mentioned before, you can use both types of data. And often exploratory and descriptive studies use both types of data. So if you're going to ask teachers, for example, where they were able to apply the learning from a professional learning development program in their classroom, you would probably do interviews or observations or ask them how they've used their learning or describe what you see in the classroom. So that's an opportunity to use both data. Usually, causal studies rely on collecting a large amount of quantitative data rather than qualitative data. Because of the size and the need for a lot of participants, it can be hard to collect a lot of interviews and observations, so therefore quantitative data is more desirable. Also, causal studies often use advanced statistics, which often works better if all the variables are quantifiable, so if you're able to provide a numeric behind that. So, for example, you could ask if a professional learning development program causes an increase in teachers' knowledge as measured by an assessment of content knowledge. And it's also important to consider when you're thinking about the use of qualitative versus quantitative data, it's also important to consider the cost of the data collection activities when you're planning for evaluation. Typically, qualitative data are much more costly to collect because they take more time and you only get one participant or just a few participants' viewpoints at one time. Quantitative data can be a little less costly to collect because it can already be used in a database. But either way, definitely consider the costs on both types of data that you would collect.